Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of 3D prototyping in Unity. My name is Kasanas. In the last episode we took a look at building a platform. We built a platform for our character to be able to stand on. It's going to be the basis of our entire level, of our entire in-game level. In today's episode, what I'd like to take a look at is actually creating the character. Now, creation of the character is going to be a very long process, and I'm going to break it up into several smaller parts. I don't want to make any videos that are too long and too scary for anyone to watch. And I want you guys to be able to watch the parts over and over again that you really need to. So in today's episode, the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to take a look at the actual character, building the actual game asset, and then afterwards we'll take a look at actually making it into something that you can move around and shoot and etc. etc. Alright guys, so let's get started. Okay guys, so in today's episode what I really want to do is I really want to just define the character, to create that character asset. We're going to start off with defining the actual animations for the character, and we're going to move on to the components that are required to allow me to interact with my character later on. Okay, so to start with, let's actually take a look at the character. Let's go into Models. If you're using My Assets, go into Models and find the actual soldier character. Now, I've already got the texture set up properly. That's all been set up. What we're going to take a look at right now is, and I showed you how to do the texture and the materials in the last episode, so just follow that same concept in order to add the texture to your character if it's not already there. Alright, if we take a look at the top layer, we've got our import settings defined here. If we look at the children involved, we've got the master, which is actually the skeletal system of our object. So it's the actual joint system we imported from Maya. We've got the actual shoulder itself, which was the mesh. We have the and everything else defined in there. We've got the actual mesh itself, just the base mesh itself. We've got a single animation list, so all the animations themselves were exported. And we have something called the soldier avatar. Now let's go back to the top layer for a second and take a look. The model itself, in the import settings, there's a bunch of stuff in here, and we can just kind of ignore it. I'm not going to change anything at all within here. All right, everything's been imported the way I like it. I'm going to leave it. The rig, the same is true of the rig. I'm not going to change this stuff here. If, however, you had a particular type of animation, like you've got some options within here, which you can define. There's legacy, generic, and humanoid. I'm going to leave mine as generic. I don't have the rigging structure that is traditional for the humanoid character, and I don't feel like defining it, so I'm not going to leave it as generic right now, and everything is going to work fine. Generic. Underneath that is our avatar and how we're creating it. Creating it from the model is perfect. I'll leave it at that. Root node. If you have root motion on your character, then you're going to want to set a root node. If you don't pick the right root node with root motion, then the character is not going to move properly. All right. In our case, we don't actually have root motion. We've done everything with treadmill, so we're going to leave it as none. Now, the next tab, animations. I didn't think I changed anything, but maybe I did. Animations. Now, in animations, this is where things aren't set up properly yet. We're going to go through and set things up right here. If we take a look at the animations, we've imported them, and we've created a single take, is what they call it, a single animation file. And it's got within it all of the animation for this character. There's my idle, there's my walk, there's my run, there's my jump, there's my swing, and so on. All right, we want to break this up into several different smaller sections, smaller animation files. Okay, so to do so, I'm going to go right here where I've got take one, and I'm going to change the name of this right away to player idle. All right, and I know that my player idle goes from 1 to 75. From frame 1 to frame 75. I know it is, let me scroll down a little bit, I know it's a loop, so I'm going to turn loop on. If I actually take a look at this right now, what I get is I get the loop of my idle. Perfect. We want to do that exact same thing for all of the different animations that I've got included on this character. There's a few exceptions, and we'll talk about them when we get there. But for now, I'm going to say plus, I'm going to add a new animation, and I'm going to call this one here player walk. That's my next one in the sequence. And I know player walk goes from frame 76 to 115. No, 100, right? 100, I think. 100. All right, again, it's a loop. Now I've added it. Play. Boom, it works. Awesome. Now, I'm going to go and add another one. Bam. Player run. I'm going to do this for every single one. Player run. Player run went from frame 101 to 115. That's my run. It's a loop. Bam, he runs real nice like. All right, great. Now, the next section, I'm going to add it right now, plus. The next section is our jump, and I think I mentioned in the earlier video that the jump itself is broken up into several smaller chunks. The jump itself is broken up into the jump, the fall, and the land. I'm going to be using a technique later on that is going to blend these things together. So I'm not going to use the full length animation, especially for the actual jump portion. It's very important to me that my controls are going to be extremely responsive. I want the player, when they hit jump, to immediately be in the air. So if I take a look right now at frame 116, let's start at 116. The jump itself, my jump animation starts off on the ground. And my jump itself went to a total of 124. If we take a look at this, it's not a loop, but you see there's kind of like a pause as the character comes up off the ground, right? There's a slight anticipatory move downwards, then the player jumps in the air. That is not going to work well for the actual responsiveness of our controls. So I'm going to reduce this greatly. I want the player to automatically start off in the air. I'm going to get rid of the entire anticipatory move, okay? I'm going to start this with 121. Is that right? Yes, 121. So the soldier's already leaving the ground. He's already leaving the ground. It's only a couple of frames. He's going to go right from this pose straight up like that. You can even reduce this more if you really wanted to, depending on how responsive you wanted this to be, how quick you want it to move. But I'm gonna go from 121 to 124 for now. All right, this is not a loop. This is not a loop. The actual fall is going to go again from, let's call this a different name because I didn't rename it yet. It's going to be called player jump. The actual fall animation, I'm going to add a new one, is going to go, let's rename it right away, player fall, is going to go from 125 to 128. 128. All right? And all that's really happening in this animation, it's really simple. His foot is just kind of going up as he reverses directions. That's it. There's just kind of a weight shift. That's all I'm doing with that. All right, great. Next, plus. Again, now my soldier's going to land. And the landing animation, we can actually use it. We're going to interrupt it anyway, but let's call it a player land. We're going to interrupt this anyway, so let's put in the full amount. Let's make it go from 129 to a total of 139. All right, and that's going to be my land animation. So it's a simple boom and land. That's it. All right? Really, really simple. Okay. Lastly, well, second lastly, actually, we're going to add in a new animation, plus, and we're going to add in here something we're going to call player melee. And for now, let's just set up the actual value. So it's going to go from 140, obviously, 140, to 149. So that in total looks like this. All right, we've got a big swing in there. Not the best, none of this is the best animation. It's just animation to get this thing done. So with that in place, I want to add one more thing, and we're going to come back and we're going to make some corrections to this actual melee in a second. One last thing, I'm gonna call this thing here because I might need it later on. I'm gonna call it player. I'll call it player neutral, just so we've got a starting point for our player itself, and it's just gonna be frame 1. I just want it to be frame 1. Bam. All right, and that player neutral is going to allow me to go back to a specific point each and every time. So he's always going to be in this kind of pose. I might not even need it, but I'm going to add it anyway. Once I've got everything added, I am going to say apply. Bam, and you can see down here we've got a bunch. 1, 2, 3, 4. All of our different animations are showing in place now. All right, that's what we wanted to see. So with everything applied, the animations in place, that's all we really need to do to the base object, okay, to the actual object in our project folder. What I want to do now is I want to add this actual game object to the game itself. Boom, there it goes. I'm going to add it right there. I want to do a couple of things right away. First thing I want to do is I want to set it immediately to reset it so it's at 0, 0, 0. Great. So right now I've reset it. The character is in place. My soldier itself is here. We've got a bunch of things that have come in with it. The top node, the actual soldier node, has a transform and an animator. Now the first thing we take note of is our character is facing backwards. And once again, it's because of the coordinate system within Maya. We want to add a 90-degree rotation to our actual character so he's facing in the proper direction. The size of the character is fine. As I mentioned before, for some reason OBJ files come in huge and FBX files come in small. So we're going to leave him exactly in this size. All right, he's perfectly fine. Now, the animator down here, we're going to take a look at the actually applying our animations to the individual character or to the character with individual keys, etc. at a later date. In fact, probably in the next episode, we'll take a look at actually setting up animation and setting up the character so he can walk. In this episode, though, all I want to do is create the asset itself. So the animator we'll ignore for now. What we want is we want this character to be able to collide with the ground, so it can't go through the ground. We want this character to be affected by gravity and other physics in our scene, so we're going to have to add several components that are going to allow this to happen. So to add a component to make a more compound structure, a more compound asset, all I'm going to do, I'm going to say add component. I'm going to go down to physics, and I'll start off by adding my rigid body. Bam. The rigid body is a physics component that allows whatever object or whatever asset it's added to be affected by the physics engine. This character will now, well, instead of me saying anything, let me just show you. Let me put him up here. Let's put this on maximize on play so you can see it. And watch what happens when I hit play. Play. My character falls all the way down. All right, so that rigid body, let me take this off for a minute just so you can see the difference. I'm going to remove the component. If I hit play now, play, no rigid body in place, my character doesn't move at all. All right, so the rigid body, what it allows it to do, what it allows to happen is for the physics engine to work on this particular asset. Great, that's what I want to happen. You can define several different things within a rigid body. The mass of the object, the drag, so the amount that it'll slow down if you apply a force, like the amount of drag on it. Angular drag, how quickly it'll stop spinning if you've stopped applying a force to it. Whether or not you want to use gravity, whether or not it's kinematic, etc., etc., etc. There are a couple of things we're going to change immediately to this character, to the rigid body itself. We don't want this character to move in the Z axis at all. I want this character to remain fixed in the Z. This is a linear game. It is a 2.5D side scroller. So I don't want the character to have access to move back and forth on the Z axis. I don't want it to slip off to the side or something like that and become put off of where all of our map is. So I'm going to make sure I freeze the position in the Z axis. Additionally, I don't want physics to cause my character to rotate in some weird or random direction. I'm going to freeze the rotation in the X, the Y, and the Z. So whenever this character bumps into something, there's no chance that it's going to be rotated or set askew. All right, we're going to maintain our current rotation, and that's exactly what I want to happen. All right, so with the rigid body setup, I'm not going to change anything for now, like I'm not going to change the mass or anything like that right now. We can take a look at that later on. That's more gameplay than anything else. I only want to get this thing working for now. So for now, the mass will stay as it is. I won't touch any of the drag or anything else. Everything's going to stay exactly as it is for now. The next thing I want to add, and when I hit play, we already saw if I hit play, the character falls properly, but he falls through the ground, and we don't want that, all right? We don't want that to happen. We want this character to be affected by the ground itself. We don't want him to go through the ground in any way. So, that said, we talked last episode when we created the actual platform about colliders. A collider, or two colliders coming together, is what causes a collision, what causes an interaction, all right? I'm going to add components. I'm going to go down to physics, and I'm going to say add a collider. Now, once again, I've got a series of colliders to be able to add. In this situation, I'm going to add a capsule collider. The type of collider, again, you add is going to be up to you. The capsule collider is rounded at the bottom. It's the standard collider used for player characters. It's rounded at the bottom and let it roll over small objects and that kind of thing. It's a really good one to use for this type of character. All right, now, the collider itself, we want this single collider to define the entire character, to define the hitbox of the entire character. So we have to position this thing in the correct location. Right now it's not. Right now it's down at his feet, and we don't want that. We want this collider to be defining his entire hitbox. So the first thing we're going to change is we're going to change the height. And you can just simply go in and adjust the height as much as you want. All right. I know from experience that this guy's height is about 1.7. And it's in the wrong location. First thing I want to make sure is in the Y that it is up into the right location. I want it to be up like this. Now, if I zoom in on this character, I want to make sure that the collider itself is as close to his feet as I can get it. Something like that. And that might even be a little bit too tall. I can even probably reduce the height a little bit if I really wanted to. I'm not going to worry about it too much. You could probably put it at 1.65 or something like that. With the collider in place like this, it's really, let me just make sure on all angles it looks good. Yeah, it looks pretty good. All right. I could probably move it back a little bit because his elbow's sticking out, so I can move it in the Z a little bit. That's not so bad right there. Anyway, so with this in place, my collider in place now defines the actual hitbox of my character. I am not going to touch anything else within here. I like the way that this component is actually set up. All right. If I hit play right now, watch what happens. Bam! My player, the two colliders come together, and my player is now standing on the ground. Great. That's all I really need to add to this actual player to start doing our animation itself. I am going to add the weapon right now. I'm going to show you how. It's going to be kind of a review because once again, it's creating an OBJ, so it's going to be kind of a review at this point. We're going to add it to a specific location on this character. Okay, so I have set up my rifle already. It's my accessories. You guys should look for yours and make sure you can find the actual assault rifle. It's right here. I've already set it up so that it has got the appropriate coloring and that kind of stuff. All right, so all I'm going to do in order to make this assault rifle come to life, I'm going to put it in his hand, I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to drop it in place. I'm going to put it right there for now. You can see it's huge. It's huge. As we've already discussed, there is a definite problem, or I don't know if it's a problem, it's how it works. Whenever you create an OBJ, or whenever I create an OBJ, maybe I'm doing it wrong, it makes it giant. All right, so anyway, that's how big my rifle is. Now, we've got a couple of issues here. First of all, the assault rifle is in no way associated with my actual character. All right, the soldier's here and the assault rifle's here, and they're two entirely separate pieces. All right, so for now, that's not what I want. I want the actual assault rifle, which I've obviously named wrong in my in my Maya file, but oh well. I want the actual assault rifle to be in the soldier's hands. So I'm going to look in the master, as I mentioned before, this additional node, this additional child hanging off this soldier character is the rigging system. I'm going to go in here, master, rig. I'm going to look for the actual character's hand. I'm going to put the weapon in his right hand, and I'm going to have to drill all the way down until I actually find the character's hand. I think that's exactly where I want it. Actually, you know what? Farther in the hand? No, right there in the hand is good. I want this attached to the character's hand. Now, all I have to do to attach this object to the character's hand is drag it and drop it in place. All right. The assault rifle is now currently located in the character's hand. So if I move the actual character around, if I actually move my my soldier around, the rifle will move with him. So if I grab the soldier, and I'll reset it in a second. If I grab the soldier, I move it around. You see that it's actually following him all around. All right. Great. Now, obviously, the weapon itself is far too big. I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to change a number of things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reset it. Bam. I didn't want to uncurl it, but we're going to have to do something about that in a second. I want to make sure I reset it so it is 0, 0, 0. That means it's currently located in his hand, which is what we want. That's exactly what we want to happen. It's currently located in the right place in his hand. Now, we have a really big problem because the assault rifle is obviously huge, right? It's obviously gigantic, and we don't want that at all. We want the assault rifle to be of the appropriate size and located in his fist appropriately. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set this to 0.1, 0.01, excuse me. And I know this from experience, 0.01 and 0.01. Oops, I missed that totally. Sorry, right here, 0.01. All right, if we zoom in now, we can see that the rifle itself is in approximately the right location. All right, it's the right size and it's approximately the right location. Now, we do still have an issue in the fact that the assault rifle itself is laid on its side, and we don't want that. So we can we can rotate this now. It looks like we want to rotate it because it's based right now on his actual arm. We want to rotate it this way. First things first, want to rotate it like this. So this is going to be -90. All right, that is in the appropriate location. That is in the appropriate location right there. The actual object itself is not lined up with his hands properly. So if we later on we take a look at the animation, it's not going to be exactly proper. I don't want to physically move this object. All right, it's positioned kind of where we like it. We can zero this out again if you want. 0 and 0 and 0 to make sure that's exactly in the right spot, and we can leave it exactly like that. What we do want to do is we want to adjust the lower child. So right now, inside of assault rifle, underneath assault rifle, we've got this thing here called new bone. I should have renamed that and I didn't. We're going to position this object where we want it, and I actually want this object to be positioned in his hand. So I'm going to adjust this slightly so I get it exactly where I like it. Let me focus on that. I get it exactly where I like it. I want this object to be in the precise location that we had it in the Maya file itself. So let me see. Gonna get it looking the way you like it. Maybe it's a little bit too big still. I don't know. That's not so bad. Alright, kind of like that. That might be still a little bit too big. I can always go back and readjust it so it's a more appropriate size. I think it looks pretty good though. I think that looks pretty good. Alright guys, so that is the assault rifle itself. It is in place. Okay, this character is now, we can close all this stuff up. We don't care about that for the next little while until we actually start working on the weapon itself. So guys, for now, I'm going to say that's it. This character is now ready to be taken a step further. In the next part of this episode, I want you guys to catch up. So in the next part of this episode, guys, we are going to start to discuss creating the actual animation files. All right, to make sure that this character is able to run, etc. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, let me know down in the comments. If you didn't like it, let me know with a thumbs down, but make sure you tell me why in the comments you gave me a thumbs down. I want to know what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. Alright guys, thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below, and if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.